Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another live gig Q&A call. I am your host, James Cronk. In front of the camera, behind the scenes, is Scott Massey doing all the magic that he does. It is April the 28th, and I'm thrilled to have two individuals join us today that, in my humble opinion, ladies and gentlemen, are some of the most forward-thinking operators that I have come across. I have been very fortunate in my travels and in our work with Golf Industry Guru and other platforms to go to conferences and to meet individuals and to hear about who's doing what and who's leading the charge from an operation standpoint. And today I have brought a man that I have always admired greatly from Canada, that is one of the leading operators in our country. And if you are a golf course owner or manager or operator in our country, you will not be surprised at who my guest is today as an innovator. And secondly, joining us is from the United States is another individual that, in my experience, is just completely on the leading edge of ensuring that their facilities and organizations are at the front of the game when it comes to innovation, when it comes to tech, when it comes to implementing new policies and procedures to improve the experience for the business. So without further ado, I'm going to let them tell you more about themselves. But thanks for joining, and please welcome to the live Q&A call Mr. Slade King and Mr. Scot Wellman. Slade and Scott, thank you so much for giving us some time today. I'm really looking forward to today's chat.
Yeah, thanks, James. Happy to be here.
Now, as always, we should always let our counterparts, our guests from elsewhere, go first. And so, Mr. Wellman, would you be so kind to share with our audience about all that you do with landscapes, with Greenside Tech, with all the other things, and take your time. Please share with our audience a little bit about your journey, your role, and how you're actively involved in operations and technology today, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me, James. My role is as the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Landscapes Golf Management. We're a top 5 management company in the United States, and recently became licensed in Mexico and Canada. So, James, maybe we'll be working closer together in the future. But my role really is to ensure that our managed facilities have all the tools and resources available to them to be successful in the sales and marketing environment. And part of that is really in the technology space. So I've really, over the last 7 to 8 years, taken on our technology stack, broke it down, rebuilt it, and have built it into something today that I think is pretty impressive, that our facilities are able to leverage. And I know we'll get into more of that with some of the questions that you have. But part of that journey has taken me into a new venture called Greenside Tech, where we are taking that technology stack, that IT experience, and bringing it to golf courses in a non-managed type environment. So we believe that not every golf course, potentially wants to be managed, but has needs and products that they'd like to take advantage of. And Greenside Tech has been developed to handle just that. So we feel like we can really handle a wide spectrum, whether it's on the management side or on the Greenside Tech side, and really excited to share some of the things that we're working on with all of you today.
Now, Scott, I got to ask, because you come from a golf background. Were you always kind of and I mean this in all due respect, a tech nerd? Like, were you always someone that kind of loved to kind of the technology side as you've been from an operations into the role that you have now?
Not really, which I think is interesting, about my background. I spent about 7, 8 years as a head golf professional at a brand new private club in Lincoln, Nebraska. And outside of that, I spent 12 years in insurance at State Farm Insurance, and really was involved in data analytics and competitive intelligence. And when I came to work at Landscapes, one of the things that was interesting to me was one, not that the business hadn't really changed much since I left it 12 years prior. And I'm
Yeah.
surprised that there was a lack of modernization in the golf space. But second was just my real lack of access to data. And really that is what was the catalyst for me really diving into technology, was a thirst for returning to what I had been used to working with in the insurance business, which was tons of data that I could leverage and analyze, and trying to make that more readily available across our industry.
Wonderful. Mr. King, please share with our audience. Both of you have been guests before on our podcast, and it's always great to have you back, Slade. So please share with our audience a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, thanks, James. I guess my business card says I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Play Golf Calgary. That's my official title. Raised on a golf course, picking balls in the ditch and bringing them back to the head pro when I was 12 years old for, I think, maybe 5 cents a piece back then. Then got a job parking carts, and I worked turf, and kind of went on the path of being a golf pro, which was excellent for a number of years, and then got connected with what now is Play Golf Calgary. But back then it was just one golf course. We just had Heather Glenn and my partner and my boss, Scott Atkinson. He was the general manager there, and we kind of connected and grown the company to 6 golf courses now. And we just kind of dig in and live right in the heart of the industry every day, battling pace and tee times and answering phones, and just supporting our management team however we can. So so it's been a 30-year journey with Play Golf Calgary, but at the same time, during that journey, I probably had 8 different positions, and we had multiple different numbers of golf courses and complexity to the business over that time to get to where we are now. So.
Scott, one of the annoying things about Slade is that every year our national conference, we have this best idea contest that, everyone puts in submissions. And I swear to goodness, every year, one of the Play Golf Calgary courses wins the contest, or at the very least, they're always on the stage every single year and are well regarded as innovators. And I think that's one of the things that I think our audience is going to benefit from today, gentlemen, is this, where do you start? Where do you go? Like, how do you wrap your head around all these different types of things and technology and AI and, voice concierge and data analysis and price dynamics and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have a simple question to get started for both of you, which is, what is the technology or implementation or strategy that you have implemented in your businesses that you think has had the greatest impact in the last, 5 years, whatever it might be? But like of all the things that innovative or whatever it might be, technology, what one do you think has had the greatest impact? And I'll start with you, Scott.
Yeah, I would say that for us, it's been a little bit of an evolution over the last 7 to 8 years. What was very apparent 8 years ago was getting our golf courses into the cloud. We recognized that having data and information stored on local servers at golf courses was not going to allow us to have the portability of our data that we needed. At that point in time, we were trying to prop up a data warehouse. We had future aspirations, which is kind of evolving into what we're experiencing today. So by getting into the cloud, we were able to start accessing APIs with all of our software providers. We created that consistent flow of data going to our data warehouse. And now there's that fun term, right, that we've seen over the last 2.5 years around AI, that we're really at a point now where we're able to leverage that data in some big ways. So, but it really originated with, how do we first get to a place where our data can be ported? And that was really getting in the cloud. And so Yes, we could point to individual companies, software companies that we work with, but it's really that concept of getting everything into the cloud and making our data portable that really has set us up for where we are today.
Scott, I don't know if you share, I apologize, but remind me, Landscapes is overseeing how many facilities now?
A little over 70 facilities.
Right. And so, can you just share with our audience a bit more when you talk about what an API is? Because, it took me a long time. I heard it 40 times before I learned what it was. So when you talk about getting access to the data in the cloud and then being able to take advantage of APIs for the the non converted yet, what can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, you bet. So first, getting your data in the cloud. A lot of your software providers are probably working with one of two cloud systems. Usually, Amazon and Google are the two big cloud-based systems that sit out there, and that's why you're seeing them build these massive data centers. They're building one just up the street from my house in Lincoln here, which it looks like a compound. When you drive down the interstate at night, it's all lit up, and they got huge water tanks and everything else. But that's why there's been a massive push by those two companies to build these data centers all over the world, really, so that all of your data can move from the software provider that you're using into the cloud where it can be accessed. And then the APIs essentially are the ability for somebody who has programming knowledge to get access to an API, to be able to access that data, through different means. So if I wanted to know, how many rounds I did last week, they could ping that API and be able to get a return in terms of the number of rounds. And so while that might not be super beneficial, you could pull that up on any generic report. Typically, an API will have a lot more endpoints or pieces of information that are available, that might not be readily available in reports, or you might want to cross over, a couple of different pieces of information. Maybe you want to have all of your weather data for a certain week compared to the number of rounds and revenue that you brought in. And so it's that ability then to be able to ping data where, different data sources, different software providers, APIs, that you've got all that information up in the cloud, that you can access and start to build your own custom reporting. Typically, it's going to require somebody that has knowledge of programming to be able to do that for you. But I don't think we're too far away from the Chat GPTs of the world, making that accessible to individuals. I know we do a lot of work with Pipedrive on the CRM tools side of things. And Pipedrive just recently, in the last month or two here, made it available where we could directly integrate our Pipedrive account with our Chat GPT account. You could already do that with Google and Microsoft, but you're probably not able to do that today with your point of sale provider like you would want to, or your T-sheet provider. But I don't think we're too far off from those providers creating that level of accessibility, which opens a whole new world where maybe you don't need that programmer all of a sudden to be able to do some of the things you want to do.
I'm going to try today to pull some nuggets out for those of us that are learning technology in the golf industry. And one of the things I've learned, and Scott, what you were just talking about there is one of the most important things as an operator is to understand if your point of sale software and your golf management software is kind of what I think I heard you say the other day. It's like an open. I heard Jake from Notify say it actually, which was an open garden where everyone gets to kind of play around and work together, and you can bring in all these different technologies to work together as a tech stack, or whether or not you've got a closed environment where your point of sale software is really more closed and doesn't allow other players that might be experts in their field to kind of support that. But we'll get into that in a minute. Slade, getting back to my question from a few minutes ago, technology that's had the greatest impact on your business?
Yeah, and we play with a lot of different tools, and part of that annoying part in golf is no one has a one solution for it. So you're always piecemealing together different solutions and band-aiding it and whatnot. And what Scott's saying with data is so important. But if you want to really break it down to the number one thing, I'm going to say dynamic pricing. And I don't mind sharing. We have great partners, and our point of sale system's called Profit, and we use Price Swing for dynamic pricing, and it works fantastic. And you got to be careful with dynamic pricing and set some parameters that works for you. And but once you get it going and you have proper predictive dynamic pricing, which is one thing Price Swing does, so you got to really be careful with that. So you're not reactionary where it's only increasing price as you're booking up. So you only really get the biggest impact on the last few bookings. You want a predictive one where it's how were you booked last year? What's the weather look like? And what's your booking pattern this week? And so there's many times we have an empty tee sheet and it's at our max dynamic price, and you're kind of going, whoa, okay, I wouldn't have done that, but let's roll the dice with this computer here and see how it goes. And man, it works out so many times where you just end up with, we've seen 20% plus increase to our green fee average, which so many times, like, it's just straight to bottom line. So, you see 100% increase to your bottom line with a 10 or 15% increase to your green fee average. So that's what we're just so dedicated, and I know addicted might be the right word for it too, is just trying to figure out what is the proper price to charge for your product, and there's so many variables and equations, and people tell you how to do it one way or another, and based on your ROI or based what the guy across the street's charging, or based inflation over top of what last year is, or whatever you want to do. But dynamic pricing kind of shows you real quick what the market will bear. And springtime is a perfect example. Conditions aren't optimal, but you have a beautiful day, 22 degrees Celsius, whatever that is, 85, I think, in April, beautiful day, 10 out of 10, and you're packed. But most courses are charging a discount because it's less than optimal conditions. However, your phone's ringing off the hook and you're turning away thousands and thousands of people. So it's like, what is a proper price for that day? And that's what dynamic can do for you, is really give you some clarity. And, we're getting more comfortable with it and expanding the parameters on what the lows and highs can be, because we kept it fairly tight for a while and just watching it closely. But yeah, we're getting more and more comfortable. Like, what's the proper price just below what a customer would consider maybe gouging? You don't want to get into that. But if someone, waited to the day before on a perfect day on a weekend and they get that prime time, they should in theory pay a premium rate for that, because other people are willing to pay a premium rate. So that's what we've been working hardest on. And there's so much complexity to the data, which, Scott was mentioning too, is you need to know your tee sheets, you need to know your booking pattern, you need to know your customers, and to try to figure out all those things. And then also for dynamic pricing to work, it's kind of forgotten that you need demand. So you have to have a good product. There's a whole other equation to delivering a good product, because if you don't have a good product, you're not going to have demand. It won't drive up dynamic price. It will drive it down. So there's a lot of discussion on customer service and course conditions and guest satisfaction and those types of things that drives the dynamic pricing. So once you get it kind of all working in this big algorithm, it's definitely the number one factor to driving bottom line.
Thank you for sharing that, because I don't remember the stat. I've read it, I've heard it. I would be misquoting it if I used it, unless one of you know. Scott, you might know, Scott. But I remember just being shocked by a study that talked about how few facilities are using any type of dynamic pricing, like how few facilities are using technology. And I do want to share with our audience that I don't know about Scott and Slade, but I'm receiving no commission for any company that I might mention today, other than Golf Industry Guru and eGolf Waiver, the toolbox. But that's another sales pitch for another day. But PriceSwing is the leader in our market as far as dynamic pricing. There's others. There's certainly point of sale software systems that have their own dynamic pricing technology in there. Scott, what are you when I ask you what kind of technology you think a facility should be engaging with, looking at, incorporating, whether you want to name the company or not, what are some of the technologies that you feel are moving the needle from a revenue operational side? I'm going to ask you, Slade, the same question about what you guys are doing. But what are some of the? Let's talk about some of the topics, areas where that technology can be implemented, and then if you want to, feel free to share with our group what are some of the technology companies you're working with that you're having success with, if you wish.
Yeah, you bet. And PriceSwing, by the way, Slade, they're probably the best at dynamic pricing. So kudos to you guys for working with them. I think they just do a fantastic job, especially with some of their price elasticity graphs and things like that can really help you with your pricing. On our end, the core really started with Lightspeed. So 8 years ago, we evaluated every cloud-based technology on the market, and from a golf management system, they provided the most robust API, and they are in thousands and thousands of restaurants and retail locations. The golf side was relatively newer at the time with the acquisition of Chrono Golf into the fold, but we really felt that they were a company who was modernizing technology and could bring that to the golf business. And they've been a huge home run for us as kind of the foundational piece. But then around that, came Metolius Golf with Ross and his team. We needed a partner that could help us aggregate our data into a warehouse and help us spit out some business intelligence dashboards and help us with the next step of, how do we leverage AI? So we are finally to a point where we can start sending our general managers on a weekly basis an AI summary. We could do it more frequently if we wanted to. But we started with weekly and let them know of, where the challenges are at their facility and where their focus needs to be over the next week, whether it's improving net promoter score or it's, hey, you need to price your rounds a little bit more effectively with, rounds being booked down for the next week. Those types of things that we can alert them to so that they have a foundational knowledge of what the key 3 to 5 things are to work on over the next week or so. And then outside of that, the reason, we hopped on a call a couple weeks ago with Notify is we are in the process of building a pretty substantial booking engine that we're excited that really we think will help us be able to force more online booking, prepaid bookings, addressing maybe some of the customer or facility questions as to why they may not be getting involved in that today. We think we have a pretty good grasp of what the core things are that need to be addressed, and we're building those things out into a booking engine that we just have started rolling out at our facilities just over the past week or so here. So we're pretty excited about what that'll bring to the table moving forward.
For those courses that might not be familiar, Notify was one of the leaders in wait list technology. Certainly, probably first to market. They're not the only ones in the market anymore, but also a team that's constantly innovating and improving their technology and being leading edge. So another great one there. Slade, you have a reputation sometimes, if I may, in all due respect, which is incredibly admirable. You will build your own sometimes. I mean, you will take an idea and then say, how can we make that work? I know you're not a big fan of paying thousands of dollars to a third party when you can do it yourself. And I think it's fascinating that way. And we'll get into that a little bit later on when we talk about prepaid technology, but or when we talk about some of the other stuff you're doing with AI concierges. But what's some of the technology, Slade, that you've adopted at Play Golf Calgary that other operators you think could benefit from?
Yeah, we've made mistakes and had a couple of false starts on prepaid and even dynamic pricing. We tried it manually for a few years and didn't work, and we abandoned it. And then when the tech got better, we brought it back in. So yeah, club, and I don't mind plug in good partners because they're always great with us, and we beta test with a lot of people and make things work. But Club Profit we use as our core. All their modules involved with that. Price Swing plugs in very easily to Club Profit. We use Notify for their wait list, and it also allowed us to dip our toes into the AI chatbots that they have as one of their modules. So we got to dip our toe into that and see how that works. Along with Scot, we use Ross, I'm a huge fan of Metolius, who kind of brings it all together. They aggregate all the data from all these different softwares and try to make it less confusing, bringing it all into one place so your management team can read that. Gallus Golf is a huge part of our business. We built our app with Jason and the guys at Gallus, and I think we have a pretty robust app now that the customers are responding to, and we just keep adding more and more to that because the Notify waitlist is in our app, our rewards program. We're dipping our toe into subscriptions, which is kind of a big, the next maybe big thing in golf with memberships and whatnot, but we use it for a few different reasons. So yeah, subscriptions are an interesting option as a new toy to play with. And then from there, Pipe Drive we use as well for our events, as Scott had mentioned. And another one we use is Basecamp, which kind of keeps all our management team organized. But, how we layered it in with, if you want to get to the end game of prepayment dynamic pricing, you have to start with a good point of sale tee time provider to book with. You have to layer in prepayment was a big part of getting to dynamic pricing. Prepayment pushed more and more tee time bookings online, less issues with miscommunication, which can be a big problem with dynamic pricing. No one told me how much it was. I paid this last week. Now I'm paying this week. So you have some issues booking over the phone, especially if you're not have your staff well trained on repeating rates and what the new rate is and that. So you're trying to push them online so they see their rate. They're prepaying a deposit based on that rate. They're getting an email confirmation with that rate on it. Now you have zero issues in the shop. They show up. They don't even mention rate. They pay the balance and they go out and play. So that's how we kind of layered it in, is like that booking engine, integrate the prepayment, push people online booking, and then integrate dynamic pricing in a very tight, narrow window, and then kind of gradually grow that window of how much your price will swing. So
love it. I want to ask about prepaid in a minute, but before we do that, two things. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to put a question in the chat for Scott and Slade, and would love to hear some comments. Got a wonderful group of individuals watching live today. It's always great to get a shout out from our buddy Colin at the Mod Golf Podcast. But if you've got a question for our group, please put it in the chat. We'd love to answer your questions. I'd love to share them with our guests. But Slade and Scott, one of the things that I certainly find and come across, and you as well must come across this, whether you're Scott, whether you're trying to engage one of your GMs at one of your many properties, whether you're trying to engage a new team member, Slade, whether you're trying to get your team to adopt and incorporate and to embrace, technology. But if we were talking about owners, operators, let's talk about owners, operators, GMs. What do you think are some of the obstacles? Like, why is there this resistance? I mean, I know why people are resistant to change. I give a speech about it all the time. But how do we get over this kind of concern over technology, the cost of technology being a revenue driver as opposed to an expense? Just this Why is it that so many facilities haven't adopted dynamic pricing, haven't adopted waitlist technology, haven't adopted some other technology? And that's a general statement, but our industry is known to be a little slow on the uptake when it comes to incorporating new ideas. And so what's your lessons now, I guess, after where you're at right now in your tech journey? Because you guys are the leaders and innovators in your space. And so when you talk to others, what are some of the things that you come across? Slade, how about you? I'll go first.
Sure. Yeah, with staff, it's always difficult. Like you say, I may be notorious for implementing new tech, but from a staff perspective, that's kind of notorious for being a pain in the butt, because you're always implementing something new that they have to learn, and their days are already difficult. Now oh no, we're not doing it this way anymore. We're doing it this way. And it can be tough, and you got to have a good team that kind of supports it. And also the technology is getting better in the last little while, that it's smoother, it's easier to integrate, and it's more user friendly and intuitive. A couple of years ago, it's clunky and you're band-aiding a couple different things together and whatnot. But to answer your question though, why in this industry are people hesitant? Number one, I think you have to be ready to say goodbye to some customers. I think that's what it really comes down to, because some customers will not book online. They will not pay a deposit. They will not pay dynamic pricing.
You'll not sign a waiver.
Will not sign a waiver. And some operators are scared that they'll lose some people. And that kind of goes back to my earlier comment that you have to work so hard on creating demand that if you saying goodbye to certain customers that aren't going to move forward with you in the way you want to run your business, and have a funnel to say hello to new customers that are ready to do that. So I think that's hard. That's really hard. It's easy to just hit repeat year after year after year and be okay with whatever return that gives your business, whatever your goals might be. But I do think the industry is heading towards a cliff where the cost of doing business is increasing, and some operators are not changing with it. That there will be a point you got to buy a new fleet of carts or a new fleet of maintenance equipment or do clubhouse renos, and the cost is going to floor you. And if your bottom line is not strong enough to support it, there's going to be some trouble. So that's kind of our feeling, is we need to stay progressive to be able to keep up with putting money back in the facility and keep making it better and better. So,
Scott, what's your experience?
Yeah, so I remember coming back to the golf business, James, and right out of the gate, having a couple of golf courses whose golf management system wasn't working, and the reason it wasn't working is they hadn't updated it over the last 15 versions, and eventually it just shut off on them. So, I think that gives you some insight into, I think, what maybe we're dealing with in the industry. But I go back to a comment that I saw on 60 Minutes this past Sunday with a former senator from Nebraska, Ben Sass. He said, for the first time in our country's history, or in the world's history, our children don't have a definitive future career, right? Because AI is influencing things so much. And so, that's not meant to be something that scares people, but I think it's an eye-opening moment to say, hey, we have to modernize our technology. We have to move with our customers. We have to, reinvent ourselves a little bit. And, that's going to set us up for future success. And if we don't, I think we know the outcome, right? Like, there's going to be other golf courses. There are going to be other individuals in the golf space that are going to capitalize on that. And, all of a sudden we're going to be in a position where we can't catch up. So again, it's not meant to scare people into why modernizing your technology is important, but it is an eye-opening, I think, period for us in golf to say, hey, we have to at least start doing something different. And if that means getting to a new golf management system, if that means setting up a data warehouse, if that means, creating an integration amongst your technology providers, which, by the way, doesn't typically cost you any money to do, right? If you're using cloud-based systems and they both have open APIs, telling your software provider here that I want you to integrate and do something with this software provider, most generally they will listen to you on that, if it's something of substance. So encourage you to think outside the box, take a step forward. And really that's why, we have started to set up our Greenside Tech brand, was really to for those individuals that aren't sure where to start and need a consultant, we can grab you by the hand and help lead you through that process. So do something different would be my ask of everyone that's on this call or watching the recording, because once you have success with that, it'll start to compile itself and you'll start to feel better, and you'll start to move your golf course up that spectrum.
That's awesome. I love that. It made me think when you started off, Scott, talking about AI. I was reading my good buddy Andrew Wood's weekly newsletter that I get 19 versions of, and I always love. But I'm going to steal his term, and I don't know if he invented it, but beneficial intelligence was the headline of the newsletter, and I like that. I like that. Because so many operators I come across are afraid of this technology or this, how AI can help them. I mean, you see it all over the place. The NGCOA US is right now on a tour, going around teaching operators about how to use AI. I have been in rooms where there's been 40 operators, and the question is, how many people here is ChatGPT? And less than 50% of the people put up their hand, and then you've got other operators, using AI concierge in the golf shop, right? So there's such a wide spectrum. Slade, I want to get back to what you've talked about, and I'm going to start with Scott, because prepaid tee times, it is a topic. My goodness, it is such a topic right now that is going on about facilities that are trying it with success, facilities that have tried it, have bumped back a little bit. I feel like you both have examples of not extremes, but both examples. Scott, can you share with us the example that you were giving the other day with the great, the podcast? I invite everyone to watch the podcast that Notify and Metolius and Scott at Greenside Tech did the other day about prepaid. But can you just talk a little bit about the example you gave, or about even more in general about how you've had facilities implement, overcome, have success with prepaid tee times?
Yeah, so we had a facility in the Omaha market. The general manager and myself were chatting in the off season, and this was a couple years ago. And really, his concern started with his no-show rate at his facility. I think we had a no-show rate that was in the 10 to 12% rate. But when we actually worked with Ross at Metolius to break that down into dollars, I mean, it was a triple figure number, and that didn't even include some of the ancillary sales opportunities with merchandise and food and beverage. I was specifically focusing in on green fee and card fee revenue. And we looked across the spectrum of all of our public golf courses and kind of saw varying degrees of the same thing transpiring. And this particular general manager was so frustrated by it, it pushed him to a point where he was like, I'm making a change. Like I'm going after this type of deal. And how should we approach it? And so we, at Landscapes, we work really closely with our facilities to create kind of their own little experiences, make sure we maintain the heritage of their facility and not let our brand get in front of their brand. And so Todd and I worked really closely together, and we kind of took the first step, which was, hey, you're gonna book online only, and that's going to be the only option for you to book at our facilities. And when you book online, our golf management system, Lightspeed, has the ability for us to to capture the credit card. And in order for us to enforce anything, we needed a policy. We needed a cancellation policy, and we needed a company like Lightspeed where we could put that policy and have people accept those terms and conditions when going through the online booking process. And so, it really kind of set the stage for us to then evolve into prepay, which is something that we started at this particular facility, but we're recognizing that there are steps that we need to take to make that process a tad bit more seamless. And that's where the booking engine that we're building with Notify, we recognize things like, James and Slade and Scott can go play a round of golf today, and James can book the tee time, but James really doesn't want to dig into his wallet and pay for Slade's tee round.
Slade's not giving me the money back. There's no way in the world. He's going to want to negotiate it on the golf course, and I'm going to be out $60.
Exactly. So we needed our golf management system, or our booking engine, to be able to manage that somehow, some way. And we saw this too during COVID, when we had to go to prepay at a lot of facilities. You couldn't be in clubhouses mingling around with one another. And the biggest gripe from the consumer was, I don't want to pay for my buddies. And so what we're building is this mechanism by which James, is the captain of the tee time, can book the tee time, but he can send a link to his buddies, say, hey, join my tee time, join my group. And oh, by the way, put your credit card information in so you can pay for your portion of the tee time. So it's this management of money where it's not necessarily paid for right away when the tee time's booked, but there's kind of a hold on that money that's established with the captain. But then we can kind of move that money around to players 2, 3, and 4 as they join the group. And then the back end, I guess, kind of fun piece too, is when they're joining that group, we're solving that other known problem in the golf industry, whereby which you're getting everybody's email, everybody's phone number, everybody's name, and now the ability to market to those individuals in the future. You can grow your database pretty significantly. I can guarantee most of the people listening to this podcast can agree with looking at their tee sheet and seeing James Cronk, guess, right? Mm-hmm. And that guess is never really captured or solved for. As much as you want your staff to capture that, and you want to incentivize them to capture that, the reality is that it's just not captured. And so we feel like we're solving for problems like that, James, that can make the customer experience that much better in terms of going online and prepaying, making it less clicks. Like, hey, I don't have to log in with a password. And oh my gosh, I got to reset my password. And then I got to wait for it to come through on my phone or into my email account. And then I reset it, and I'll forget it again the next time I go to book a tee time, and I got to go through that process. Just simply putting in your phone number and having that authenticate you really quickly is something that we're working on with Notify as well. So there's a lot of cool features that we're trying to build out that hopefully make that prepay experience that much more enjoyable for the consumer and for the golf course, and can allow us to focus in on the most important thing, which is the customer experience when they show up at our facilities.
Love that. It's such an interesting case study. I mean, if you take it all the way back, though, right? The reality is that your information in the cloud, which allowed you to analyze data, which allowed to identify the fact that you had a short show and a no-show problem, has now led to all these solutions. But if you don't have the ability to analyze your tee sheet, to understand you've got a no-show problem or a short show problem, then you never get to the solution. We're going to pause for a commercial break because I just want to remind everyone as well that our integration with Lightspeed allows the waiver to also be done automatically in that loop, in that process, so that now you've got the money, you've got the email address, and you've got a waiver signed for the golfer before they even come into the golf shop. But back from our commercial break, Slade, you have had you mentioned earlier on about going to COVID, but can you share your story a little bit about your successes, challenges, and also from the consumer, if you don't mind, some consumer feedback about prepaids. And you're not currently doing prepaids 100% anymore.
Yeah, we've made some mistakes and false starts along the way, and you're kind of limited by some technology years ago and trying to just figure things out. But yeah, we've always tried to do that. But we had a mandate where we are for our golf courses for during COVID for 100% prepayment is one of the government mandates to lower whatever touch points with the pro shop staff. So we jumped on that right away, and our technology provider with Club Profit allowed us to do that with 100% deposit, and we kind of jumped on that, and a number of other golf courses in our market did as well, and it started to become somewhat normal that customers during that time would pay for it 100% up front. Now, again, people are okay with that for a short window of time, paying for 4 guys and collecting that money back from their 3 other friends. But as the market changed and some other competitors or other golf courses stopped taking prepayment, we were one of the only ones remaining. We were getting that feedback of saying, oh, I got to pay 100% up front. No, thank you. And they would hang up. So, to react to that, we allowed them to come in. We would refund 3 golfers and then charge the 3 golfers on the till. So the one guy would pay all 4, the 4 guys that walk in, you refund 3 and charge them. Now all of a sudden, you live and you learn, but a month later, our banking, our Monera's banking bill comes in and it's like double. And we're like, what the heck? And it's oh geez, okay. We're getting banking charges twice because we charge it, we refund it, we charge it again. Okay. So maybe not the best solution. So it's okay. Well, what solves both issues, lowers our banking charges, but also keeps our no-show and short show level as low as possible, keeping that customer accountable for that tee time. So we went to 25% because we felt 25% on a foursome, the person booking is paying for themselves, and then the other 3 can pay on the till. We watched that very closely and found the no-show and short show almost identical to 100%. So we've been running with that for probably 3 years now. But again, with this discussion, and obviously it's a hot topic, is the market change? Are customers more willing to do 100% prepayment again? The technology's better. It's a little slicker, a little user intuitive. Maybe it's something to try again. But again, it's kind of serves our purposes and did its job, and the customer complaints stopped. So we're kind of feel we're in a real happy medium right now.
Well, I don't know what we should tackle first in the golf industry. Should we tackle prepayment of green fees or keeping people from bringing their own booze on the golf course? I'm not sure which, we're so completely afraid to implement policy that in other industries is just a given. I mean, we've got golf courses that won't take a $10 deposit to book a tee time on a Saturday morning when they're going to be full. Yet I can't make a reservation on Open Table at 2 of my favorite restaurants without giving a deposit, without committing to a deposit. It's like, you never buy tickets to a hockey game and expect to get a refund if it starts to rain or you get stuck in traffic, And so I think it's so interesting. But I would go back to what you said, Slade. I agree with you 100%. And Scott, what you're doing with, that you have the ability to do because of your resources and your experience, the technology is getting drastically better, right? It is getting better. It is becoming simpler. It sometimes is not now 20 clicks to do something. It's still 8. Even though I could book a flight on 3, I still, need 8 to book a tee time, but it's better than 20. So there's no doubt that things are getting better. And I guess, for both of you, Scott, I'll start with you. with a facility that you had? I mean, obviously there must be some customer pushback. I mean, obviously there must have been some, whoa, like just like Slade was saying, what was there any kind of best practices that you would share with an owner operator manager that is trying to implement some kind of a technology, whether it's dynamic pricing, whether it's prepaid for a deposit, whether it's 100% prepaid, whatever it might be? Do you have any suggestions on what are some best practices to change those old habits that people just stick to their guns with? Or do you just recognize that you're going to lose the 20% and hopefully replace them with a different customer?
Yeah. I don't even think it's 20%. Like and Slade, you could probably speak to this too a little bit, but I think we thought that was the case, James, with what we implemented. We thought we would get a lot of blowback from consumers. The reality was it was very, very small. Like over the last year, we could probably count on two hands how many people really were irate over the new processes and procedures that were put into place. And to Slade's point earlier, those are probably the customers that, unfortunately might have to look at another option. But are you willing to forego less than 10 customers to have all the operational efficiencies that you're able to take advantage of? I think that's probably a pretty good trade-off. And so, but one of the things we did do was in the first year, we offered rain checks just as hey, maybe you weren't aware of our policy, even though, it was stated, you accepted the terms, you knew about it, you confirm, we sent you confirmations from Notify, and, you still didn't show up for your tea time. Then I think, giving that rain check in the first year was a nice olive branch to kind of train the customer a little bit. I think we gave out a little over 500 rain checks, through this process. Now in year two, that part's going away, right? The customer is now trained. They expect it. Customers will call and want to cancel their tea times right away because they don't want to be charged a fee or, lose a deposit. So it's just a matter of, I think, training your customer to do, to your point, James, things that they're already doing today in other industries. And I'm not a big fan of comparing to other industries. I think the golf industry is the golf industry, but you can look at other hospitality industries and see the advancement of the technology. And I think say to yourself, well, why can't we do some of those things too? And I think the answer is you can. And don't let that minority that barks at you at the beginning influence your decision. Because too often I see, golf courses that are coming in with a bold strategy. They believe in it. They understand from data why it's important. And the minute 2 or 3 people bark, I'm out. I got to stop doing this. Give yourself 30 or 60 days. You get past that initial push. I think you'll realize that that's a pretty small minority that really is giving you some kickback on anything you're trying to deploy.
Slade, anything to add there?
Yeah, you just stick to your guns, like Scott had mentioned. Our CEO Scott and our owners are very committed and we have a very good vision of where we want to be, and you just have to be able to take that risk that it's the right move. And if it's not, you can adjust, but support your team when they're talking, when customers are irate and angry, and give them that language to how to answer those questions properly. And so many times these customers have been playing you for a long time. Their idea or vision of what the golf industry is from like 7-8 years ago. So they're going, what do you mean you're doing that? I'm going to go somewhere else. And then they'll go somewhere else and go, they've actually progressed in the last 8 years too. So,
right.
And then they realize you're not so bad. And then they call you back up and and want to come back. But yeah, golf is so unique, and every property is so unique too, because sometimes like if you might have a course where someone books last minute, or you have a course that people are booking a month in advance. You have a course where people play 3 times a week, and paying for a foursome and getting refunded by 3 of them 3 times a week is pretty difficult. But or you have a resort course you're playing once a year. Well, paying for a foursome and getting refunded is not that big a deal. So some of those conversations about hockey tickets or airlines or hotels, you're not doing 3 times a week. So you have to adapt and adjust depending what your property is, and booking habits of your customers. So
yeah, that's so critically important, Slade, that you bring that up, which is, you got to know your customer, you got to know your market, you got to know what's your competition, you got to know what your staff are going to be willing to incorporate. We've got a few minutes left. I want to ask you a couple other technologies from a pace of play standpoint. Do you feel like that's been handled? There's Tag Marshall, there's others out there, there's golf cart pace of play and things like that. Do you feel like that's kind of been successful with pace of play? Or are we still struggling with that? And I mean, GPS now, you can pinpoint where you've got problems. You can send messages out to the golfer on the GPS screen if you need to. You can shut down carts. What have you had any success using anything else?
I think you got to get your hands dirty with pace. It's something that's a big part of our day for all our managers, and just having people understand the importance of it. Really looking at your tee time intervals is what we're doing right now. So I think, again, like golf's a little antiquated that it's a 4-hour game. It might not be. One course, like we have one course we rate at 4 hours 36 minutes. Another course is 4 hours 19. So communicating that to a customer, you're coming out to the 4 hour 36 minute course. You're not going to play in 4 hours. This golf course is not built for that. So it's an education. It's part of it is that old school Marshall, the old angry guy that drives around in circles. You can integrate technology, hand that guy an iPad and say, monitor Tag Marshall, click here and here to update us on what, how often you had that conversation with him. And he looks at you like, are you kidding me? So, we kind of have a bit of a staff changeover now that our marshals, we just have a strong market of applications from 20 to 30-year-olds that, students. So we're kind of changing over the profile of our marshal to a 25-year-old student that understands the game of golf and can use the technology to go out and give very specific instructions to people. Hey, you're out of position. I need you to be here in 15 minutes and not just driving around in circles and yelling at the slow ones and high-fiving the fast ones. Yeah.
There's not many times you learn anything from me, Slade, but I'm going to suggest you change from 436 to 435, and then you create a whole marketing campaign. We strive for 435.
Okay.
Scott and I have been to that movie before successfully. Scott, how about yourself? Anything there in either that technology, or I do want to ask you guys one more question. So, Scott, I think let's move on. AI voice activated concierge services in the golf shop, answering the phone, booking tee times, integrated with POS systems. It is the number one thing that you see and hear about being discussed on social media from a golf technology standpoint, replacing golf shop people from answering the phone, the whole conversation around the number of people that are phoning to book tee times versus someone that wants to do it at 1 o'clock in the morning and use an AI generated voice. Scott, your quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, the couple of golf courses that we've tested it at, it generally does a decent job with the public customer in terms of booking a tee time. As it relates to members, they figure out the pathway to get out of the phone tree and to get to the golf shop, and we saw a lot of bouncing in 15 to 30 seconds from members to actually get to a live person. So, at the facilities we've tested at, they had a large membership presence and in conjunction with public, and So, it was only probably handling 20-25% of calls, but in those calls, it was handling it pretty well. So I don't exactly know what our future vision is for that, because I think a lot of this can just be addressed by forcing your customers to book online.
Yeah.
And then do you really need a voice concierge to handle everything else? I think that probably puts that into question. And so I think our focus has been more in the online booking space than it has been on the voice concierge. But we have some data to understand exactly how it functions at facilities, which is good to have.
And Slade, I mean, you built your own, I believe.
Yeah, we could do another hour on this, James. This is my new toy. This is my new work addiction, is reading transcripts from our AI phone answering service. So yeah, we just launched at a Blue Devil this spring, and just playing with it. And we can't book online yet, or I'm not comfortable yet booking online, because we take credit cards and deposits. So we're trying to stop short of that and send that to ProShop or to website booking. We're using it as a strategy to lower the amount of phone calls and to push them online. I think a lot of the discussion we have is it's just too easy to pick up a phone. And what business does it ring twice and a very competent person answers that phone that can answer all your questions? I don't know many businesses that do that anymore, where golf is still the shop open, answers in 2 rings and can help you. So we use AI as a bit of a buffer, we feel, to make it slightly more annoying, but not too annoying that they stop calling. But then it's been just surpassing my expectations as far as all the questions it can answer. So yeah, we're just like watching these transcripts, and any question it can't answer, we can reprogram it to add to its knowledge base so it can answer that question next time. So yeah, once we launched it, it was answering about maybe 25% of the questions and forwarding 75%. After about a month, we have about 65% of the questions being answered and 35% being pushed to the Pro Shop. And the majority of that 35% being people just being stubborn about booking online, and they say, no, I want to book at the Pro Shop. So that's kind of an interesting and exciting kind of new, like I say, toy. Is it replacing staff yet? No, but what it's doing is freeing up that phone ringing off the hook, especially when we first opened, where you're booked solid, and now all you're doing all day is saying, we're full, we're full, we're full, we're full, we're full.
Right.
So you can program it. Hey, we're full today and tomorrow. Check online for any last minute openings. If I can help you with anything else, let me know. And then all of a sudden the phone's just plummeted, and the staff can now spend that time helping people on the till. So
shaking hands and kissing babies.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we will schedule a podcast at the end of this season and have a whole conversation around your lessons learned. I apologize, gentlemen, for keeping you over time, but I still have 6 more things I want to ask you about. But thank you so much. Slade, I know that if they want to reach out to you, Play Golf Calgary, Slade King, if they have any questions for you, your email address.
Yeah, Slade at playgolfcalgary.com.
Yeah. And Scott, I invite everyone who wants to learn more about technology and how it can help your business to go visit Scott and Greenside Tech. Scott, what's the best way for them to connect with you and your technology consulting and everything else you do?
Yeah, Wellman at landscapesgolf.com.
Love it. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining today's Gig Live Q&A call. So many great takeaways and tidbits about technology, prepaid tee times. We didn't even get to talk about the future and that whole world that's coming up. But thanks so much for listening. And as always, next time we will see you on the inside.